Okay, today on the show, we have Cathy LaMon with Keller Williams in Atlanta. And let me tell you more about Cathy. Now, Cathy LaMon began selling real estate in 1992 after leaving the corporate world of IBM sales, where they were offering incentives to downsize their workforce. Cathy took advantage of that and joined a locally owned brokerage with about 500 agents and set to learn all that she could by attending trainings and conferences all over the country. Now, in 2001, she was given the opportunity to invest in a new Keller Williams office in Buckhead, where she has been ever since. And she has a small team consisting of herself, her husband, and a full-time licensed operations manager. And their goal this year is to help 42 families build a life they love. And her average price point is about $750,000. And her and her team work predominantly by referral. I want everybody to visit Cathy's website because not only is she our guest and we should always support our guests, but she has a really beautiful looking website, lamonteam.com, LAMON team.com. You can also find links to all of her social channels there. We will post links to that in our show notes as well. But lamonteam.com is where you go to learn about Cathy and her team. Cathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, DJ. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks. We are glad you're here as well. It's funny when we were thinking about your bio, and I actually was in Buckhead in 2001 with Anheuser-Busch. They were having their conference in Atlanta, and they had rented out a number of the Buckhead bars for this conference. The conference was at the CNN Center, or I don't know what it's technically called, but over there downtown. And then in Buckhead they had all these fun nighttime activities. And then I went back and visited Buckhead probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years later, and it had really blossomed. And even now it's obviously blossomed even further. But what a fun area to have an office. You picked a great location in
It is a great
Atlanta
location.
Metro.
Fun things to do, a lot of good restaurants, great people, and never a dull moment in Buckhead.
Lots of fun to be had, and it is really a fun place to visit. So if you haven't ever been to Atlanta, go to the World of Coke and go visit Buckhead.
Yep.
I think it's called World of Coke. I can't remember.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful Georgia aquarium right next door to that. So it's a great place to bring families and good place to visit. Yeah.
Well, I love Atlanta. So Cathy, I understand you were in really the IT world. You were in sales before when you were at
Right.
IBM, and I understand you had an opportunity to take a nice exit package and then decide to switch to careers. Why did you decide to switch careers to real estate?
Well, at the time, I had little kids and thought, oh, real estate, you can kind of set your own hours, do your own thing. I'll try real estate. Well, anybody that's in the business knows that, yes, you're very flexible unless you have a client, and especially an out-of-town client, and then your time is their time. But it did work out well to just be able to pick up my daughters a little bit more often and just give me the opportunity to be a mom a little bit more often. So it was a good move. And I loved IBM. It was a great place to learn. It was a great place to start my career. I went with them right out of college. And what I've realized about real estate is there's even so much more growth opportunity, both personally in terms of training and growth opportunities there, as well as income. IBM kept me, I was on commission, but if you sold too much too early in the year, they would just raise your quota and you'd be back making the same money. So that it was very tightly controlled. And real estate, as people say, the sky's the limit, and there is no ceiling and no floor, but it's a great business.
It is. And I also too want to put this in perspective because when you started obviously the world changes every year, but it really has changed since when you started. You were pre-internet. So we're talking 1992. I mean, technically the internet was sort of around, but not.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't adopted by the public. And I remember I went to college in 1994, and that was the first time that we started seeing web browsers and the ability to sort of, and it still wasn't widely used. So I'm guessing, we were on the phone a lot, which
Yeah. Yeah.
people who did not grow up pre 1994, they don't know how to use the phone. They don't use the phone today. They don't communicate that way with their friends. I still think the phone is a really great way to communicate with people. And it's kind of a bit of a lost art now. But I do think that, and even though people may not be as accustomed to being on the phone as they once were, I think we have this yearning to actually interact voice to voice. Obviously, we could do FaceTime, and there's ways to do voice and picture at the same time. But I imagine you probably still pick up the phone quite a bit. Is that a fair?
I do. As a matter of fact, I set a goal to make 10 calls every day. And a lot of those end up being voicemail. And, there's always this question, should I leave a voicemail? Should I not? And I just choose to leave the voicemail.
Yeah.
I think if someone does take the time, it's nice for them to hear my voice, and maybe it's a little more personal. I
Well,
use
and I
text.
also,
I use text a lot too,
of
though.
course,
So
yeah.
just yeah,
There is something to be said about a phone call, and that's also one of the nice things about being on the phone these days is you are going to get a lot of voicemails because you get to choose now who you want to speak to, and it's really, I think, made the phone a lot easier to use as
I agree.
because you're like, oh, well, I'm probably going to get a voicemail. And then you get to leave a lovely message. And my thought, and Cathy, I know you're right. It's like, are they even going to hear the message? I think most people listen. I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to see stats on this because maybe I'd be wrong, but it depends on the age range, I think.
Yeah,
But if
probably
you're
so.
listening to our podcast, you're a realtor, you should be listening to your voicemails because there may be some business in there. But I understand the idea of like, God, am I just wasting my time leaving voicemails? I don't think so because, for example, Cathy, if you called me on my birthday to wish me a happy birthday, for example, it came up in your CRM, I probably wouldn't answer the phone, not because I don't like you, but because it's my birthday and I probably
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah,
answer the phone. But maybe the next day or later on that day when I go back to listen, I would very much go, that was sweet of her. That was
yeah.
nice. So for those that are like, ooh, I'm a little nervous talking, most people aren't going to pick up, but you can still leave them a nice, thoughtful message.
Well,
So I'm
and
a big
and
fan.
what I realize too, DJ, is when I do get people, I find out things that otherwise I would never have found out. Somebody's been sick in their family,
Yeah.
or they've just gotten some kind of news. It's amazing, and that's one call maybe out of 20. But if I hadn't made the call, I would never know. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, I'm so glad I made that call today.
Well, it's true too, because a lot of times, we think, well, how else do we get our news about people in our lives? Well, we might look on social media. And, when things are maybe not going well for a family or they're going through some sort of, difficult time, maybe they're not posting about that on Facebook. Some people do, a lot of people don't. And so you might not
Right.
know unless you picked up the phone and reached out. So let's talk about how you did get started pre-internet, right? Like you still had to go out and prospect, and obviously, we're talking about a long time ago, but I think, a lot of the ways in which you probably prospected or built your business then still are applicable today, because I think fundamentals typically don't change. So I'm just curious, back in the early 90s when you were starting this new career, how did you grow your business where you didn't have a background of being in real estate?
Well, one of the first things I did when I got into the business, even before I got in, I had an IBM discount to buy a laptop, and I bought a laptop and I loaded everybody that I knew into a database. So just, that's the bare fundamentals, and that has not changed today. If people, that's how you get started, is you build a database. So I did that. We had computers that would access. When I started, I called expired listings for sale by owners. Those were out on a computer. You had to go to the office to get it, to key it in, and you could see the listings that are coming up, but you had to go into the office to do it. So that is very different. But a lot of it was the same old, same old. Get on the phone and call those expireds. I eventually got to the point where I decided that really wasn't what I wanted to, where I wanted to live, and that expired for sale by owner world. So I ended up doing much more of a referral based business once I got a little traction going. So
Yeah, but I think even though you're like, oh, the expireds and for sale by owners aren't for me, and I think most agents probably have a similar experience with for sale by owners. You have to be a special kind of personality, I think, to be able to withstand some of the difficulties of calling expireds and for sale by owners. They are tough calls, or they can be tough, of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
But certainly the kinder, or I shouldn't say kinder, I'm sorry, the gentler approach is the working by referral, made, famous, made famous by a lot of people, but in the real estate industry, Brian Buffini is sort of associated with working by referral, live the easy life, his one of his slogans. I know you're a fan of Buffini's systems. I am as well. And you've not just worked with Buffini and his company, but other systems too. But how important was it? Because I know you really dove into this. Probably, I'm guessing, getting the training at IBM, where the training is so important, and they're such a white glove firm, that you probably sort of thought, I gotta get my knowledge up. And so, talk about going to conferences and the importance of that for you in those early days.
in the company that I was with had good basic training in terms of, when you're getting started and what's a contract and what do you need to know. But for anything more advanced, I found I had to travel somewhere and learn. And that suited my personality so well. I'm very learning based. I love learning new things. I think if I stopped learning in this business, I would not want to do it anymore. But even after all these years, I feel like I learned something new every day. But I would go to conferences. There's a guy named Howard Britton that assembled all these top agents from all over the country. And I went to that. I went to Buffini. I went to some other trainers as well. Just learning and trying to figure out what fit me and what felt right. And then my style now is a mixture of a lot of different trainers that I've heard over the years. My core is Buffini, that just working by referral. That's the core, and I still love that system. And you can add on top of that, add the videos, add all the fun things, but at the core, it really needs to be, in my opinion, it needs to be about a relationship and digging deeper and going deeper with people, serving them at as deep a level as we can.
Could not agree with you more. I apologize. Our internet, it may be a little choppy. So if I'm choppy to anyone, I apologize. But I absolutely agree with you, Cathy. I was thinking about Brian Buffini, when what I liked about Brian Buffini is, it, he came up the idea basically, and there's a lot of different principles of his teachings, but I've always loved the idea of sending an item. He calls them items of value, right? And he says basically, you really should be giving your prospects, your clients, something of value every single month, or whatever the time commitment is, or the duration is. But it's really important, because you really always want to be sort of giving people things where they're like, that was thoughtful, that was helpful, that really is something, information, or something I can use. And he was a little bit ahead of the curve on that, because now we know that, like, social media is all about providing content. It's all about providing value through content. And, like, if we expect people to watch our videos on Facebook or TikTok or wherever they may be, they better be pretty, at least, if nothing else, entertaining, but better than that, hopefully providing some actual information that people can use. And Buffini was one of the first people I saw, a sales trainer, that was like, this is the way to people's hearts. Obviously, there's more to it than just that, but I've always been a huge fan of that. Curious to get your thoughts on the items of value.
Yeah, I mean, I think now most of us have transitioned into more of an email
Sure.
or, as you pointed out, social media, video messages. He still provides monthly um,
The mailers.
things
Yeah.
you can mail out. Yeah. So that can be layered. It's a bunch of layering, I think. You
Yeah.
never know what works for certain people. So, um,
Well, you have built a referral based business, and everyone, now I shouldn't say everyone, I would say most agents I have spoken to during my career in this industry, about 13 or 14 years, almost everyone I meet says they want a referral based business. So, that is obviously a common goal for a lot of agents. How long did it take you to do that, and what were some of the ways in which you began to transition away from making the cold calls to how do I get other people to market for me?
again, I think it goes back to building relationships. When someone knows and trusts another person, if they have an opportunity, you'll be the one that they recommend to their friends. So I think there's nothing magic about it. It's just getting in front of people. To this day, we still do a lot of lunches. I have lunch with someone almost every day of the week. Coffees, just being in relationship with people. And when they
Let,
do
let,
that,
let me drill down on that. I apologize,
okay.
Cathy. This is real. This is really great because having lunch every day with somebody is something that uh, all the hundreds of episodes I've done, I think you may be the first to talk about that specific sort of strategy. And can you talk a little bit about who you choose to take to lunch, what you
Mm.
talk about, because this would be super helpful to our audience.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say it falls into two camps. Number one is past clients or prospects, somebody that I'm working with or have worked with. So um, that is one whole group. That's a pretty easy group because what do you talk about? You talk about their life, their families. The old Ford: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. It's all about getting to know them better. So that's one bucket. The other bucket is trusted advisors, and this has been a focus of mine over the last few years to try to get to know more estate attorneys, more wealth advisors, CPAs, divorce attorneys. So those people have the opportunity to refer multiple people. So to the extent that I can build a relationship there, the the opportunity is just much greater than an individual who might have a friend who needs to buy or sell real estate. So I really do a lot of both. The trusted advisor is a really fun thing to do once you kind of get your feet wet with it. And they get my same marketing that I send to everybody else. At first, I was like, okay, I've got to send something
Just for
real,
them and
yeah,
their
just for
needs.
them,
Yeah,
that's real, that's real professional or real business, not fun. But they like fun things too, so I
sure.
kind of had to get over that 'cause it's just too much work to do two different things. When I meet with them, I may bring something more professional, some statistics or questions for them on their business, but the basic marketing is the same. So that's been fun. I'm actually getting ready to start something I'm really excited about. I'm starting a group of women who are what I would call trusted advisors. And I'm hoping we're having our first meeting coming up, but I'm hoping to meet once a quarter with this group and really build strong bonds. There's a financial advisor, there's a high-end insurance broker, a state attorney, CPA. So I think it has a lot of potential and recommend anybody could do that, whether it's women or men or both.
Those are all amazing professions to consider to add to your professional, sort of services or professional network, I should say,
Mhm.
because you're absolutely right. Those are people that are oftentimes dealing with life events, which typically may result in a transition of home, people moving in, people moving out, selling, buying. Divorce attorneys are the most obvious example of that. But you're right. Estate planning attorneys, as you
Yeah,
mentioned,
some of my best business in the last year has been from estate attorneys. So,
oh,
um,
such a smart idea, and
yeah,
oftentimes a overlooked specialty for realtors. We think divorce, 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 yes, and estate planning attorneys as well, because of course those are, and you could also too. I think possibly there's just a weird idea that maybe isn't a good one, but people who work in mergers and acquisitions as well may, if it's they work locally, they may be having companies that are moving in, moving out. So there's maybe some
Yeah.
opportunities there as well. But I
Yep.
agree that having that professional network is awesome because you can basically share clients and refer and
Mhm.
say, I've got
Mhm.
a great estate planning attorney. And by the way, everybody needs a great estate planning attorney. It's
Right.
a really important thing. And when somebody's going through a family change, having a good divorce attorney obviously is important as well, and a good accountant and all of these things. So Kathy this is such a great point. I'm sort of sticking on it for a moment because I
Oh,
really
good.
wanted to sink in. Kathy, thank you for that. I really, everyone out there, yes, have lunch with your clients and your prospects. And yes, 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 always do that. And let's add in some professional people where you can actually help their business. And I think the best way to have those conversations is say, hey, I would like to learn more about your business, Mr. or Mrs. Estate Planning Attorney. What can I do? I have clients. Here's what my clients are like. Here's what they do. Would they be of benefit to you? What can I provide to you first? And then hopefully it becomes a reciprocal scenario.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
What else did you do to so we talked about sort of this networking, staying in touch with your sphere, taking them out, seeing them face to face, also doing the same, creating this networking group that you have, and also just these trusted advisors. What I want to ask, because we talk about this a lot, and I know there isn't a probably a really easy answer for this, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a tougher question, only just to see what you might answer, because we talk about in real estate, we hear this phrase a lot. People who know, like, and trust us are the ones most likely to work with us. This is working by referral. Know, like, and trust. We hear that over and over again. But I also think that I believe that trust is earned. So I'm curious on, yes, you have to earn the know, like, and trust part. How are you, because you obviously do earn it and you have earned it. What do you do during when you're working with a client that would eventually get them to say, not just, hey, I had a good transaction, it closed, etc., but I really, really like Kathy. I really felt she did a good job for me. I imagine you have certain standards in your business that lead to the know, like, and trust, I'm guessing.
Yes, I know that we do, and we're always working on trying to improve that. I mean, it's boiled to me. A lot of it just is so basic. It's communication.
Yeah. Pick
It's
up the
it's
phone when it
yeah,
rings.
yeah. It's being in touch. It's making sure that the client's needs are answered. And my husband and I work together. He works with buyers, and I work with sellers, and I do most of the lead generation. He is incredible about being patient and spending I hear him spending hours and hours on the phone with people explaining things in the inspection, or explaining, the appraisal issues, or whatever it is. It's that taking the time with them. And he's honestly, he's much more patient than I am.
Sure.
So he's in a good role, but I think that that's what people need. And it's not necessarily the first time buyers. Some of the high end buyers need just as much as anybody else. So I think that that's part of it, just taking time and building that trust, and um, doing what you say you're going to do. I have a great assistant who is there. And does she ever drop the ball? Do I ever drop the ball? Well, of course, occasionally, but for the most part, we do what we say we're going to do. And then we love to stay in touch with people afterwards too. And I think that's really a lot of times where you build referrals is, it's not just one and done, and you're on to the next. You're calling them and checking on them and making sure. We love to stay in touch with people on an ongoing basis. I always say, once you get in our web, you can't get out. So
until you say stop
yeah,
contacting me,
exactly,
and
exactly.
and
Leave me
nobody
alone.
prob and nobody probably ever does that
No
because
one ever
what you're
has. Mm-mm.
yeah, of course, of course. And it's really important too. You said something very profound now, which again, it's back to a fundamental of in between the sales. What are we doing in between sales to stay in touch with that client? Because they're probably not moving for another, I don't know, 7 years, 5, 7 years, whatever the
Or more.
stats,
Yeah.
or more. And but we want to make sure that when they are ready, and we won't know when that is necessarily, we want to make sure we're top of mind. And so this idea of reaching out in between is really, it's, I think it's a lot simpler than people make it, because it could be as easy as somebody bought a home from you, call them a month in, hey, how did the move-in go, how is everything, you good, any problems, just want to be, call me if you have any, if you need anything, I've got a network of people I can connect you to. It really, that could be almost the call every year, if nothing else you want to talk about is, how's the home, how's everything going, what's going on with the family, everything good. It can just be a check-in, really.
Yeah,
And
really. Yep. Yep.
I used to, I remember, this is a, I'll make this story very short, and I will tell you, sounds really silly, but it made me feel very special. When I was in high school, I had a friend who had an older brother who went to MIT for college. He was like the genius of all of our friends. He was, yeah, anyway, so he went to MIT, and he says, oh, I'm taking a class by Dr. Amar or Amir Bose, the guy who created Bose sound,
Huh.
so Bose speakers. And he said, if you want to buy any Bose speakers, we get a discount. So anyway, because he was in the class. So I bought some speakers through my friend, and whatever, cheap speakers. I mean, great speakers, but inexpensive. It wasn't like a big purchase, a couple $100, whatever. And every year after that, for 5 years, Bose would call me once a year and say, just checking in, how are the speakers performing? And I was like, it blew my mind.
That's
And stop doing
amazing.
it. Amazing, right? Now, I'm sure probably because it was purchased through his class, maybe I got put in a special category of like, make sure to take care of these people. But it sounds silly, but it really made me feel important. And I have never met another company that does that. And that was
Mm-mm.
1993, maybe. So anyway,
Wow.
this is a point back to calling
Yeah.
about the house. All you had to do is call and say, how's everything
Yeah.
going? What's
Yeah.
going on?
Simple.
What? Simple. But you said, I'm so okay. So in between sales, we want to stay in touch. When you're working with a client, when you're in a transaction, let's say nothing's happening, you get no activity on a listing, let's just say as an example, no new interest, let's say a week goes by. What are you doing? Or are you doing anything to talk to the seller to say, okay, here's what's happening? Or what is your philosophy around that?
DJ, that is the worst. That is the worst time when nothing's happening. And Atlanta, the market has been so good that we're still not experiencing that. But I believe me, I've been through that. I
Sure.
lived through I lived through the recession. So um, I think that in normal times, bef- before too many days go by, you're getting a message from the market. I always say the market will talk back. If we're not getting showings, if we're not getting offers, interest, then the market is telling us something. So I think just planting the seed, obvious. Maybe this isn't obvious, but it goes without saying that. Okay, here's what I have been doing. Here's where your listing has been, how many hits you've had on the website, etc. So a report to them, but then I think even after a week, we start planting the seeds for a pricing adjustment, unless it's just like the recession or something like that. I think that normally, if a house isn't getting any activity, that's the message we need to be getting to the client. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. It makes perfect sense. And I know that there can be some call reluctance, or
Mm-hmm.
reluctance to pick up the phone when nothing is happening.
Yep.
Even, a few days maybe where nothing's happening. What are you doing to keep the buyer or seller informed, even when there's not much to report? Because I know a lot of agents don't, maybe aren't as proactive when things aren't happening. I once had asked a top producer here in Chicago, so silly, but I said, why do you think she's number two in all of Chicago? And I said, why do you think out of 40,000 agents, you're number two? And she goes, I call my clients every week and tell them what's going on. And I said, well, and she goes, that's kind of it. And she goes, DJ, you'd be surprised. Very few agents do that. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
really?
And I would not claim to be perfect at that by any means, but again, just picking up the phone and touching base. And even when things are happening, I think that people just want to hear from you. I listed a new house yesterday, and we've got some showings lined up, and I plan to just touch bases with them and say, they're out of town actually, so they don't know precisely what's going on. But just to say, we've had these showings. This first one said they weren't interested, but we've got some more lined up for the weekend. Just that communication. And honestly, I'm not always the best at it, but it's a goal to be more in communication, and I think people appreciate it. They never mind when you've got their house on the market, or a house for them under contract. I don't think you can call them too often. I don't think you can overdo it when it's
Or they'll let you know if you're overdoing it,
yeah,
and odds
yeah.
are they're probably not going to say stop communicating with me about this transaction.
Right.
Um,
That brings up a point that the best thing to start off with is to ask how you want to be communicated with. Do you
oh,
want to do
great
you want to
question.
have a phone call? Do you want me to text you? Do you want me to email you? So then the person who says, I want you to call me, they're not going to mind if you're calling. So we need to we need to continue to do that. We kind of come and sometimes we kind of forget on that, but
You know what I love about top producers is they say these really profound things, but to them it's like that question said something incredibly important, which was ask your clients, how do you prefer to be communicated? Would you like a phone call? Would you rather have a text? Is it okay if I leave a voicemail? What are the hours you want me to call you? When do you not want me to bother you? These one of the this is what she knows, but a lot of agents don't know this. So remember Cathy probably so there's the golden rule, which is the way you want to be treated. The platinum rule is like other how they want to be treated. That's you have to ask questions to get that. So Cathy, again, seems like a small thing you said maybe to you, but really, really profound. Don't just assume everyone communicates in the same manner because they don't.
yeah.
What are we doing to celebrate our? What are you in your? Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to mention this other thing you said that was really, really important because Cathy is very self aware. She said at the beginning, there's certain things I'm not as strong at, which is why her husband fills in those challenges. So she talked to Cathy had mentioned she maybe isn't the most patient person with and that's not a negative. That's just part of your personality. You're good at some things, and other things you're weaker at. And maybe patience isn't always something that you can just learn to be more patient. So what Cathy said is instead of just, well, I'm going to fight against this and do it, I'm going to get somebody who's really, really good at that because it is important that I have somebody that's super patient. And she has her husband step in. So what is the lesson from this? Well, we know that teams are on the rise. And look, the truth is you just can't do everything. You just can't. You're not going to be good at everything. So I love the fact that you have your husband, great, good thing that his skill set is different than yours
Yeah.
because you guys can then complement each other and you go, oh, this person's going to need some patience. Husband, you take care of this one, and it works really well. And then that the client gets everything they want.
Right. And we intentionally, when he joined me in the business a few years ago, and I never wanted there to be a situation where we would be like, oh, you said you were going to call him. No, you said you were going to call him, and nobody's called him.
Right.
So we have a very, very clear definition. Bob works with buyers, I work with the sellers. And occasionally, I mean, we still are talking about our clients, um, and we know what's going on. And occasionally, we'll be involved in the other side. But for the most part, it's very well delineated, and that has worked very well for us. And I'm
That's
glad
that's fantastic.
I'm fortunate that he loves doing the buyers. It's not everybody does.
Well, and typically people who are working agents that are working with buyers typically do need more patience because those
Hmm.
transactions tend to,
Hmm.
to take longer. And
Yep.
obviously there's a lot more that can go wrong on the
More
buy
hand holding.
side.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and it is great though that you do have somebody, your husband, of course, in this case, that's able to step in and help out in that way and make it so that you don't say, "Well, I'm not really a buyer's agent." No, I have my husband. He's the buyer's agent, and
Yep.
he'll take
Yep.
awesome care of you. Um, what what are you? Do you do any client appreciation events? I'm curious
Mhm.
if you've started doing that, or if you're working on that, or if those have been
Oh,
important in your business.
we love parties. My husband says that we are an event company posing as a real estate company.
I love. It's funny. I asked that question and I was like, I hope she's doing client appreciation, or else she's going to be like, yeah, we don't do that. And because I had no knowledge, I'm like, she has to do this. And so I'm so
We
glad you're
love
like,
it.
oh, we love it.
We love it, and we do all kinds of things. We love having dinner parties. We love having 6 people around the table and just breaking bread. That's really where you get to know people, and we like mixing people up that don't know each other, and sometimes we'll have people that know each other. So we do all kinds of things. We'll do some medium-sized parties where maybe we'll have 20 people over for drinks or something, and then a few times a year we have a big event. We're planning right now a big pizza party. We have a person that a company that comes with this big wood fired grill, and they grill the pizzas. They're delicious. We'll have wine and beer. This year I've got a gelato company coming to serve gelato, and we have a DJ, and it's all in our driveway. So we're praying for good weather, but it's lots of fun. We've done a few. We've done it several times before, and it's always a fun party. So that's one of our biggest parties. We will probably have 200 people here
Wow.
all together, and my husband doesn't know that yet, so don't tell him. But we do pies. We do a pie party at Thanksgiving, and we've done movie parties. We've done a little bit of everything. We love to travel, and when we get back from a trip, say to France, for example, we will. Last year we had a French wine and cheese party, so some things like that. That
Oh, that's a great idea. So you go on a trip, and I wasn't sure where you were going with that. So that's amazing. You go on a trip, you experience the culture of another country, and then you bring that culture back
Yep,
with you.
yep.
So I have never heard of anyone doing that. That is an
It's very
amazing
fun.
idea.
It's
I
very
love
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, brilliant. What a
Thank
great
you.
what a great I always love these. It's always I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. Anytime I hear something new, and I know it's not new, it's not like you're the first person to ever do that. I just have never heard of it, and so it's new to me, and I love it. So
Oh,
that's
thanks,
you
CJ.
seem it's a lot about activity, right? It's just
Mhm,
constant, like you were saying. I make
mhm.
10 phone calls every day. I bet most realtors don't even do that. And I'm not here to criticize everyone. I'm just here to challenge people to realize this is what top producers do. They pick up the phone or some version of that. Are you doing a lot on social media, or is that something that you're not as connected to?
So, uh, almost 2 years ago, I hired a marketing gal who was helping me, and she is guiding me. Um, she actually does most of the posts. I'll do some myself, just personal ones, but she's doing the business ones. And I originally came to you through Kim Ritberg, and Kim is helping me with video, trying to get me. We're going to work on messaging this fall, and really trying to create messages that resonate, and that, going back to your original point of value, it's not just about nothing. It's about something that hopefully will. No message is going to appeal to everyone all the time, but if we can just make it something that's interesting and informative to a number of people, I think I'm real excited about that, to try to kind of take it to the next level.
I
So
also think too, and by the way, I plug for Kim Ritberg. She has her own series on our podcast. We love Kim. She's our social media expert, and I didn't realize that you came through by way of her. So I am so excited because Kim is one of my favorite people I think I've just about ever met. So I just absolutely adore her, and I encourage everyone to listen to her series on our show. Just look for Kim's episodes. She is a real gem. And yeah, you're talking about value. I think because I know there's this, a lot of us in this industry have a perfectionist mindset. We want our headshots to look perfect, or we want our. By the way, I'm going to divert from what I was saying. I was just at a Zillow conference the last 2 days. Showing Time, which is owned by basically by Zillow. I was at a conference for them, and I was fortunate enough to get to go. And they showed a statistic that is so interesting. Speaking of headshots, and it just came to me. I totally forgot. This is amazing, and I wish I could show people this, although it's a podcast, so most people wouldn't be able to see it anyway. But they showed some data that suggests that headshots are done. Nobody wants to see headshots anymore. What they want to see is still a professional photo, but what they actually want to see is you being captured doing something that you enjoy, something that is a passion for you, whether it's real estate, maybe you play guitar, or maybe you're into whatever. Maybe you just want, you're a great mom, or whatever you're into. They actually, they had data to support this. They said nobody wants to see the perfect airbrushed photo anymore. They want to see you in action, which makes sense because we follow people on social media and we see them doing what they do. So for anyone out there who's thinking about getting a new headshot, yes, get a new headshot, obviously get that, and get some shots of you doing other things. And people actually find that to be more inviting and more real and more authentic. So just a little plug from something I learned from Zillow last couple days. But Cathy, sorry to to interrupt your
No,
interview
that's
with that.
really interesting. Really
It,
interesting. Yeah.
and here's another one, real quick. Sorry, just because it's coming to me. Use white linens if you can on your listing presentations for the master bedroom, or sorry, for the primary bedroom. Um, Use white linens if possible, because Zillow has found that by using a white, like a duvet or a white, comforter, 30% more clicks versus a different color than white. I mean,
Wow.
crazy, weird thing. So if I was
Yeah.
an agent, I might just buy like a king size
Yeah.
comforter, keep it in my trunk, and
A
just
great
say, "Hey, I need
idea.
a swap." So anyway, okay, back to Cathy. I am so sorry, Cathy. I
You're
got
giving
loaded
me
up
good
with the.
ideas. You're giving me
Ah,
good ideas. So thank you.
well, I need to learn from you because you're really so much further along the path than I'm. Cathy, what? Um, let's talk about boundaries in the sense of, we know that parents know this as well as realtors know this. If we don't set some sort of boundaries for our people in our lives, especially if we have children, they may challenge those boundaries. Clients can do the same thing. How do you handle a 10 o'clock? And maybe that not everyone is. Do you set certain expectations for your clients so that they know what to expect if they reach out at like an odd hour?
Um, I wouldn't say that I typically say, okay, you can call me between 8 and 6. I don't have that. I know some agents have that on their voicemail and all that. Um, but honestly, I usually go to bed around 10 and I'm not answering the phone after that.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that it's for me and my husband, it's more event or situation driven. I answered the phone last night because I just got a contract worked out at like 8 o'clock, and the guy had a question. So I answered the phone at quarter of 10. And I know my husband has been up to midnight with people going, when there's a deadline on an inspection or something like that. So I wouldn't say we have any hard and fast, okay, these are our business hours.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. We're at a point in life when we don't have any kids at home. So it really takes the pressure off
Sure.
of that. And we are working on no phones at the dinner, that kind of thing. That's sort of basic, but
But if
that's
if 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 a message comes in late at night that you don't want to handle, you've been a realtor for a very long time. Can we tell the rest of our audience that in most cases it can wait? It can
Oh,
wait
yeah.
until the morning. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing wrong with voicemail. You can get it tomorrow.
That's absolutely right. And the problem with text messages is there's no end to a text message conversation,
Yeah,
right?
that is
Phone
true.
calls have a start and an end.
Yeah,
Text
that's a
messages have a
good
start,
point.
they don't have an end.
Yeah, that's a
So,
very good point. I never thought about that, but yeah, if you start it, unless you say, "I'm sorry, I'm going to bed now. Night, night."
yes.
So,
Which,
yeah,
by the way, is an absolutely reasonable thing if that person is expecting some sort of response. You could just say,
yeah,
"Oh, I'm headed to bed. First thing in the morning, I got it," or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Who can argue with that? Kathy, we should also mention too that our show is a show for agents, by agents, listened to by agents as well. So we also want to promote referrals, and we know that Kathy works in downtown Atlanta. She is and the nearby surrounding suburbs as well. But
right.
Atlanta is a hotbed for people moving in and out. Lots of big companies are there. And if anyone does have people moving into Atlanta, in particular the metro area and the close suburbs, Kathy is a great resource. So, Kathy, if there are agents out there that either maybe want to connect with you because you might have people that are moving from Atlanta, like
Yes,
down to
yeah,
Florida or wherever they may be
absolutely.
retiring to. Yeah. So, what's the best way if somebody wants to connect with you that they can reach out?
My website is just simple lamonteam.com, Lamon dot, I'm sorry, Lamon team.com. I'm Cathy at lamonteam.com. I'm on Facebook, Insta, all those good places. And I think you said you were going to put it in the show notes too.
I
So
will, absolutely. But I really, Kathy, it's funny. I was just sort of reflecting on what we've talked about today, and there are lots of great tips here that Kathy provided. So, on behalf of our audience, I mean, really, this was a chock full episode of actionable strategies by somebody who's been in real estate for over 30 years now. Congratulations, by the way. Did I do the math right on that? Yes.
yeah, yeah,
That is impressive, and not. And Kathy has seen. Oh, by the way, Kathy, you've been through some ups and downs. Last question: Are are we worried right now about the market at all? Are we worried about interest rates, or are we like we've seen this before? It's going to be fine. What do we
we are
think?
going to be fine. And yeah, as you've pointed out, I'm a big follower of Brian Buffini. He is very optimistic about what's going to happen with the rates and the market. His message right now is to focus on listings. We need to be listing, 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 and learning. If you don't have listings, go to a class and learn how to do them better. So just invest in yourself, invest in your people, and really, he says we're going to have a great 2024. So good things ahead.
And for anyone out there who's like, how do I get more listings? There's a million ways to do it, but one way that I think would be particularly applicable today is, and Kathy can tell me if I'm nuts and wrong because I might be, but well, I'm definitely nuts, but I'm also I may be wrong. That's for sure. I'm definitely crazy, but people are always interested to know what their home value is, right? This is why Zillow became Zillow. It was the Zestimate. It wasn't the home search. It was actually the Zestimate, and the Zestimate then gave birth really to their home search. So people, whatever we think of the Zestimate, people like to see the Zestimate, however accurate we think it is or not. This is a great opportunity to take a lesson from Zillow's playbook and maybe reach out to people who, whether they were your client or not, hey, I thought I would show you what I believe your home is approximately worth right now. Would you be interested in seeing that? I mean, I would always be interested in seeing that. So I don't know if you do CMAs for your
Yeah,
clients. I'm sure you
I,
do.
I did one yesterday, as a matter of fact. Yes.
And by the way, as much as I think Zillow is a great company, and I like Zillow. A lot of agents do not. I understand and respect that as well. But if I'm looking for an actual CMA, I don't use Zest. I use Zestimate as like a starting point. Like, okay, that's what Zillow thinks, but I want somebody like Cathy showing me exactly what she thinks after 30 years of the business, because she knows the market better than an algorithm likely could. So this is a great opportunity, guys, to exercise your experience and show people, hey, this is what I think right now. Great opportunity there. But on behalf of our audience, for all the great tips and advice that Cathy provided, we say thank you to Cathy and her team. Her husband's not on the call, but we say thank you to him as well, for some of the tips that you mentioned that he has. And on behalf of Cathy and myself, we'd be remiss if we didn't say thanks to the audience. Thanks for listening. Thanks
Yes,
for
thank
making it to
you.
the Thank you. And thanks for making it to the end of the episode. We just asked everybody do two quick things for us. I know it's a lot to ask, but just tell one thing, tell a friend. Think of one other realtor that could benefit. This is a great episode. Send it to people that are struggling right now, agents that are like, what do I do? It's tough. Yes, send this to them. They'll get some great ideas. And also, please leave us a review. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, let us know what you think of the show. Constructive criticism is always important to us. We do this episodes. We do the show for you. So please let us know how we can improve it and also what you like as well. Cathy, thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
We are
DJ.
so honored to have you. You're a big deal, and you didn't have time to do this and you found time. So thank you.
It
All
was an
right,
honor to
everyone.
be asked. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Visit LaMonTeam.com, LAMON team.com. Links to all of Cathy's websites and email and social media in the show notes. Reach out to her.
Love
She's a
to,
lovely those things. She has wisdom. Guys, learn from people who have been in the business 30 years. That's the one thing they have that new agents just don't. They don't have wisdom yet. You don't have it. That's something that comes with time, and people like Cathy. I don't want to make you sound like you're older, Cathy. That is not what I'm saying. I don't think you're older, but just being in the business this long is really a treasure, and it's no surprise that Cathy's a top producer. So
well, and
anyway,
most people in this business love to share. So I
absolutely.
reach out with questions. I'd be happy to have a dialogue.
Awesome. LaMonTeam.com is where you learn all things Cathy and her team. Cathy, thank you. And we will see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you, DJ.